Yesterday, we got ourselves some pretty crazy news from the Auburn football program as they have claimed 9 national championships and also have included 15 conference titles. This was just a crazy thing that just came up yesterday. When I read this and saw this, I kind of knew I wanted to just make a video about it because I saw the championships that they are claiming to be national champions, and it's very crazy. I don't know. So nothing much really going to be in this video. It's just going to be me talking about this stuff. So I don't know. Anyway, guys, before we get into it, welcome to the BrewCrew channel. My name is Hayden Brewer. If you guys are new to the channel, of course, I do football content like this, and I do some wrestling content as well on the channel. So if you guys do, of course, enjoy this video, enjoy content like this, definitely hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for future upcoming videos. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. And of course, coming back to my videos and all that. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and get into this. We're just going to go straight into it. So, mostly, of course, last night, I found this article with on3.com, which is sort of like a rivals.com, it looks like. It says Auburn Sports, probably like an Auburn sort of website for Auburn football, it looks like, on Rivals or whatever. But the article is, of course, titled, like I said before, Auburn football now claims 9 national championships and 15 conference championships. Now, this also came out yesterday with a tweet as well on X by Justin Hawkinson. I hope I'm saying that last name right. First, of course, that is what will starting off this article. Pop it on the screen. It starts off with Auburn, it's about time. Auburn football finally will claim 9 deserving and legitimate college football national championships. Auburn Sports confirmed on Tuesday. When reached out for a comment, athletic director John Cohen offered this explanation of the school's decision. So if you guys again do not know, yesterday, about the time that I'm recording this, yesterday on Tuesday, Auburn had come out and said that they are officially claiming 9 national championships. Apparently they actually claimed like 3 championships quietly, but yesterday they full on claimed 4 more national championships as well. 2 of them really, in my opinion, are one side. One I actually agree, the other one I kind of disagree of why they should claim it, and we'll get to that when we can. Other championships we'll actually read on this article, definitely have a good explanation, but we'll kind of look at the seasons and all that and kind of just explain like who the actual champions were of this seasons and where Auburn really was in all this ranking and whatever. Because of course, if you guys do remember, of course, some of these championships like go back to the 1910s, 1950s and all that, which of course back then before the BCS was along, they didn't have a national championship game. A champion was crowned by, I believe it was like voters or something like that. It was by voters or the polls or something. I can't really remember much, but they didn't have a big time national championship game. But anyway, so this is from the athletic director, John Cohen. So it goes into to say, quote, "For too long, Auburn has chosen a humble approach to our program's storied history, choosing to recognize only Associated Press national championships, the AP poll national titles. Starting this fall, we have made the decision to honor the accomplishments of our deserving student athletes, coaches, and teams from Auburn's proud history," Cohen said. "Our visible national championship recognitions now align with the well-established standard used by the NCAA's official record book and our peers across the nation." So mostly I think also this is now going to be official for the NCAA, but there's sort of a problem with one of the championships, and I'll kind of get into that. So previously, this goes on to say, there have been 2 AP national championships recognized inside Jordan-Hare Stadium, the 1957 championship and the 2010 championship with Cam Newton in the BCS. And 3 more national titles were quietly noted in Football Media Guide, 1913, 1983, and 1993 were kind of funneled in, but we'll get to talk about those. But 4 more national titles will now be recognized. Auburn official national titles will now be 1910, 1913, 1914, 1957, 1958, 1983, 1993, 2004, and 2010. Marking, of course, 9 national championships they have claimed. But one of them I have sort of a problem with, and that is the 1958 national championship. That championship was actually dubbed and belongs to us at LSU. And LSU had the better record that year at 11-0. We'll get more into that, really. Were 11-0, and they even played in the Sugar Bowl, which I think bowl games weren't really that big back then. But Auburn didn't play in some sort of final bowl game or something. Literally, the game that made LSU become national champions was that game against Clemson in 1958 and the Sugar Bowl. So, I don't know. But it goes on to actually say, this: for Auburn, the debate has gone back well over a decade. In 2014, then Auburn athletic director Jay Jacobs acknowledged the school was considering recognizing legitimate titles. Jacobs said at the time, it's not, quote, it's not about taking anything from anybody else. It's not about saying you aren't the champion, we are. It's about approximately recognizing those teams that were rewarded by a credible poll. They were a champion. So why shouldn't we have a flag or banner in our stadium like other schools are doing? I don't know, bro, because you probably actually weren't dubbed the actual frickin' national champions. I mean, the only season I can agree is the 2004 season, because you were really stubbed out, and that was during the time of the BCS. So we'll get to that in a little bit as well. This actually then goes on to say, the school is also updating their conference title count to 15, reclaiming 3 titles from the SIAA, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association era, which this was apparently a conference that they were in, or that they were a part of, or whatever, I don't really know. New signage for updated national and conference titles will start going up inside and around the stadium on Tuesday, which was yesterday. So then it goes in to mostly say some of the new championships, or the certain championships of why. So mostly first, in the first one, the 1910 season, Auburn finished with a 6-1 record and was 5-0 in the SIAA and outscored opponents 175-9, and the Tigers were also co-champions in the SIAA, but they weren't the national champions. The real national champions in 1910 was actually co-champs of Harvard and Pitt, where both of them actually finished the season undefeated. Pitt at 9-0 and Harvard at 8-0-1, just actually beating out Navy and Vanderbilt as becoming co-champions. But Pitt, I would probably say, would be the national champions. In the final poll, though, Auburn was number 11 in 1910, and they only finished with a 6-1 record. So that is definitely questionable, but I'm not really going to go too much into it because it's from 1910, so I got nothing much really to say. Then it goes into 1913. 1913, Auburn finished with an 8-0 season and were the SIAA champs, and outscored opponents 224-13. But did, of course, not win the championship, as that was actually Harvard who won the championship. And Auburn, though, probably was actually snubbed out, as Harvard did finish number 1 in the final polls, but it was Harvard actually who finished with a 9-0 record. So possibly with them having the better record, they would go on to win the championship, or they would go on to be voted as the national champions. Again, I don't know, this was back in the 1910s, so I really can't remember how the national champions were dubbed. I believe it was some sort of voting system or polls or whatever. Then the next season in 1914, the Tigers finished with an 8-0-1 season, 5-0 in a tie in the SIAA, and outscored opponents 193-0. This definitely, with that could have been a season they should have won, but they didn't. In the final polls, they placed 12th in the final polls with their 8-0-1 record, and it was Army, who was also kind of low on the rankings. It was Army who was voted or whatever as national, who went on to actually be the national champions of 1914. So finally, actually, now we're coming out of the 1910s, because that's, of course, probably confusing a little bit. Now we get into the big year that I talked about before, in 1958, which was technically the year that LSU was the national champions. LSU was the national champions. Also, Iowa was co-champions, which we'll get into that. So in 1958, Auburn finished with a 9-0-1 record, a perfect 6-0 in SEC play, because around this time, SEC was becoming a conference. LSU finished number 1 at 11-0 and was widely regarded as national champions. The two set of Tigers didn't play each other. Iowa was also named a national champion that season by an outlet, finishing with an 8-1-1 record. Off note, Auburn's defense led the SEC and the nation in yards per game allowed, and the Tigers' offense led the SEC in total yards per game. So I can kind of agree that if they are upset about Iowa being dubbed champions, but then also if you can say before the final game or before whatever, Auburn, of course, again, remember, finished with an 8-1, was it 8? They did finish with an undefeated 9-0 record, but they, for some reason, bumped down in the polls. So I can definitely agree why they should have possibly, maybe that one outlet could have been recognized as champions by the outlet instead of Iowa. But no matter the case is, LSU was the definitive national champions because A, they were 11-0, they played one more extra game, and of course they had a really great team. Of course, this was the team that had freaking Billy Cannon as the Heisman Trophy winner. So that's, of course, definitely one championship. I kind of don't really agree, but kind of looking at it because they see Iowa as champions, I can see why, but at the same time, I don't agree because Auburn, I didn't finish undefeated or anything. Now we move on to probably also a crazy season when I read into it. The 1983 season. Auburn might have been the best team in the country, finishing 11-1. The Tigers beat 5 ranked teams, 4 of which were in the top 10. Texas went 11-1 with just 3 ranked wins, but did defeat Auburn. That we'll probably come back to. Nebraska went 12-1, but beat only 1 ranked team. Texas and Nebraska, ranked number 1 and number 2 going into their bowl games, lost. Texas lost to Georgia, while Nebraska lost to number 5 Miami, and Auburn went on to defeat Michigan in the Sugar Bowl. So you would probably think with Auburn being actually higher ranked than Miami, because Auburn, I believe, was number 4 and number 3 at this time, would win the national championship. But no, Miami would go on to win the national championship would go on to become the 1983 national champions, as they were the team, of course, to defeat Nebraska. They were the team to defeat Nebraska, going over Illinois, who did actually lose as well, but going over Auburn and going on to become national champions. Auburn didn't even finish number 2 in the final polls, because even though Nebraska did lose, they only bumped down 1 to number 2. So I definitely can see with that, but I can kind of see why they dubbed Miami, because Miami literally beat Nebraska, who was number 1 in the nation. So that's just kind of me saying that, so I don't know. Quickly going on to 1993, the team finished as the only undefeated team in college football, but NCAA probation prohibited the Tigers from playing on TV or playing in the postseason that year. The National Championship Foundation later named Auburn co-national champions. So I can understand with that one because they were one of the undefeated teams. But then that actually goes on to 2004, which a lot of fans could probably agree with this. As of course, they were 13-0, won the SEC title, and even won the Sugar Bowl, but the BCS system computer ended up placing USC and Oklahoma in the national championship. Of course, USC was also stripped of their title in 2011, leaving no official BCS champion. Auburn beat out 4 top 10 opponents and 5 ranked opponents overall. Oklahoma beat only 1 top 10 opponent and 3 ranked opponents in total, and USC beat 2 top 10 opponents and 3 ranked opponents, although the OU win was later vacated. So mostly all in all, Auburn should have been the one to face either one of Oklahoma or USC in 2004. Then it actually goes on to say then in addition updated national title count, Auburn is adding back 3 conference titles. The conference titles the program is adding back in 1904, 1908, and 1910, as of course when they participated in the SIAA, which of course we talked about a lot about as well. So leading up, of course, them to having 15 conference championships all the way from 1904 to their final one in 2013. And then it ends off to say, the school will invite back and honor players from these championship teams during the upcoming season. So I don't know how to feel really about this, because now it's just coming to this mostly saying, like, I was talking to my dad and my brother about this, and most of my dad kept saying, like, with Auburn doing this, it's now mostly showing other teams are now also going to do this. Like we've already had prime examples of this, and really one big prime example is, of course, if you guys remember, Central Florida UCF from 2017. They were the only undefeated team. They're, of course, again, not a Power 5 conference team. They were from the American Conference, but they were the only undefeated team remaining in college football. They didn't get into the Final Four. I don't even know if they even made it to the top 10, but they were not ranked well. They didn't get their chance. And what did they go on to do? They go on to dub themselves as national champions because they were the only remaining undefeated team. Which I still don't really like, because I just hate that. I just hate when they're like, you know what, we're just going to dub ourselves national champions. But like literally the only big Power 5 conference win that season, and what if I remember that y'all had, was the win against Auburn at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That was the only big, massive win that I could think of. And of course, yes, they tried to continue it going in the next year, but then of course they ran in to us and Joe Burrow just before Joe Burrow's Heisman season. Of course, the game that solidified what Joe Burrow would go on to do the next year. Not really going to get too much into that, but you know what my point is. But you know kind of what my point is and what I'm trying to get to. We've seen this before already, and now of course we're seeing it again. So mostly that means any team is going to say, hey, we actually claim ourselves as national champions. Another example is actually back then, another thing with an LSU championship. In 2003, USC should have been in the game against us instead of Oklahoma. So USC ended up dubbing themselves sort of co-champions with us at LSU, and then of course the next year they go on to win the national championship in 2004, mostly saying they could have gone and should have been back-to-back champions, because they ended up making themselves co-champions, even though us, LSU, went on to win the actual BCS national championship. But then again, that was also another prime example early on with this BCS system that they did with a computer BCS system. That could also be a whole video I can go over, because that was definitely a crazy time, and I wasn't really watching football a lot around that time, but looking back at it, it definitely was. So that could maybe be a future video to talk about. And really, it's just all crazy. Mostly just leading to the question of like what other teams could do it. I mean, heck, even Florida State can freaking do it with the 2023 championship. They were the undefeated team that was snubbed out of the Final Four. They could go on to claim themselves as champions. Even though, yes, they didn't really play in the playoffs and didn't play in the championship. That's sort of the question is like, well, how can you know you guys would have been champions if y'all would have played in the playoffs? Like, would y'all been able to defeat Michigan and go on to face Washington or whoever, or Washington or Ohio or Texas in the national championship? We don't know. We won't know because they were, of course, snubbed out. So I can agree if they do that, but sort of don't because they didn't play in the playoffs and they didn't play in the Final Four playoffs or anything. But I feel like there's going to be more happening with more teams coming out and being like, whoa, actually, you know what? Since Auburn is doing it, why don't we do it? We actually claim these championships. So I don't know. It's just a crazy scenario. And just really some of the championships I really don't agree. Mostly just the one. I don't agree with them claiming the 1958 championship. I don't agree. Like, I feel like LSU was the much better team, and they played more games and all that, and really, I don't know. Maybe they just do it because they saw Iowa was co-champions, and Iowa had one loss, and yes, a one tie, so did Auburn, but they were undefeated, so I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it, so I'm going to kind of go ahead and end the video here. I don't want to get too much into it. I kind of didn't want this video to be as long as I wanted it to, but it was just a lot more than I thought about that I was going to go over and talk about. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this whole situation that Auburn is going on with Auburn and all that. So just let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, hit that like button. Also hit the let me restart. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you guys are new or haven't yet, and hit the notification bell as well for future upcoming videos here on the channel. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys have an amazing, a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.